Hey everybody, I wanted to create a video more specifically for Big Data Doctor and some other people who can't set up their own dev instance of Foundry to help them better understand the ontology. And there was a request to see a little bit more into what you can do with actions in the ontology. Before I do that, today is AIPCon day, so shout out to those at AIPCon. But yeah, so the idea here is, I think this is a good example. Um, if you go to Palantir Learning, which is at learn.palantir.com, you can go down to Deepdive and do your first workshop application, and that helps you build this shipment operations center workshop module. But I think why I think this is a good example is because there's just a very simple ontology configuration here set up that represents this shipment scenario, right? So you have your shipment object, your product shipments, your vehicle that the products may travel on, the locations that they may travel to and from. So you would come in here and maybe configure this shipment object that contains, the following backing data set. And the shipment object is defined by certain property criteria, right? So we have the shipment name, the ID, maybe the date that it went out, the date that it's supposed to arrive, maybe the location of the destination, etc. Right? These are properties defining a shipment. And within the shipment object, you can define the relationships to other objects. Like we said, the shipment object has a link to maybe a vehicle that's assigned to travel on in the schedule. So you can define properties of an object, you can define links of an object, you can even define the actions of an object. And this is what, Big Data Doctor, you were asking me to cover a little bit more in depth. And so I thought I would just show a very simple example that it's done here to say that, like, okay, so if I went to new action to apply to this like shipment object, I can make a change to an object in the ontology. So I can create a new one. I can modify an existing object. So let's say I want to update the shipment status in this example, right? So I go into this workshop module, right? And I go to the schedule. And the reason I may want to do this is because I'm looking at shipments here and say I want to go from, like, all right, a shipment that travels from Chicago to New York. And I have a certain allocated number of shipments that are going to go out, but multiple trucks traveling through from those two destinations, from that one destination to the other. And so maybe we can consolidate the packages to one truck to save money. And so the idea is, like, okay, we can kind of cross analyze our shipments to our schedule, and maybe like come in here and maybe multi-select that these three shipments can go on the same one. So we'll mark it for consolidation when we do our vehicle routing, right? And this mark for consolidation is just triggering an action in the ontology to set the status of these shipments to being able to be consolidated, right? So that's essentially what we did here on this shipment object, is we created an action that just modifies that shipment object. And let's see here. So it just changes the status of the object to eligible for consolidation. And that's just like one of multiple things that you can do with an action. So back where I was, an action can create, modify, or delete an object in the ontology. You can also edit a link in the ontology. So maybe you want to delete a link that exists, or maybe you want to add a new link, or maybe you want to define a custom function. So what I did here was actually I wrote a TypeScript function that can back your actions. So it's an ontology edit function. It'll edit your ontology via this function. And I actually have the function open up right here, but all it does is essentially allow you to, the example here is, and I'm not sure how well you are at reading code, but this mark shipments for consolidation function here takes in a object set, which is like a set collection of shipment objects, right? So it collects them all and then sets for each shipment the status equal to eligible for consolidation. Now this is doing in code what you could actually do without having to code. So when you go through this learning module, it's really just showing you for the sake of, like, seeing what you're capable of doing in TypeScript function-backed actions. Because in reality, when you go to modify an object, you can allow multi-select. So keep that in mind, but it could go much further than that simple use case. And then the last one is a webhook. This is if you have to maybe do a write back to an external source, or the side effect is essentially doing a notification. You could do several notices that go out that are not they basically operate independently of each other. So those are the extent of applying actions to your ontology objects. And hopefully that sort of helps frame this very simplistic concept of how you configure objects in your ontology manager. So, thank you.